The Secrets of the Coup Against Soviet Socialism. Part 1. A startling reality for communists and historians alike is that the First World War and its unforeseen developments enabled the Bolsheviks to gain control in Russia in October 1917 and to declare in March 1919 a global communist revolution, which Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels had foreseen nearly 70 years prior. This war also paved the way for the opponents of Bolshevism to successfully overthrow the Soviet socialism in 1953. The First World War came to an end with the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, which imposed severe, retaliatory conditions on Germany as dictated by Britain and France, who held it responsible for starting the war. These conditions included compensation for war damages, which amounted to 132 billion gold marks. The treaty aimed to cripple Germany's industry, which at the time was a strong rival to that of Britain and France. Consequently, the German people suffered during the so-called Weimar Republic, 1919 to 1933, under the leadership of the Democratic Socialist Party from poverty and hunger, to the point where the price of a loaf of bread reached 25,000 marks in 1925. At that time Hitler rose to power in 1933 and built a war industry rather than a capitalist one that could compete with Britain and France, which was acceptable to these imperialist countries. After just 4 years of Hitler's rule, Germany had become in 1937 the strongest military power in the world, which enabled it to expand geographically across all its borders. The imperial powers in Britain and France recognized that they were not able to confront Germany militarily, so they chose to pursue a policy of appeasement with the Nazi regime and redirect its aggressive military capabilities towards the Soviet Union, which they saw as a major threat to the capitalist world. This was the underlying motivation behind the famous Munich Conference, which took place on September 30, 1938. At this conference, the English and French offered appeasement concessions to Hitler, such as the occupation of Austria and a portion of Czechoslovakia, and granted Mussolini some minor concessions as well, and kept quiet about his aggressive policies in Libya and Africa. The Munich Conference revealed the contents of an unholy alliance between global imperialism, fascism, and Nazism in Western Europe. Such an unholy alliance formed a dangerous force in the face of the Soviet Union, the only socialist state in the world, and posed a real threat to the socialist revolution. Thus, the historical leader of the World Socialist Revolution, Stalin, sent Vyacheslav Molotov, the Prime Minister, to propose to the leaders of Britain, France, and the United States to form a four-power alliance to confront the growing Nazi dangers in Europe. The three major Western powers rejected Stalin's proposal outright, strengthening suspicions of a great conspiracy being woven by the imperialist and fascist states against the Soviet Union and its socialist revolution. Thus, Stalin had no choice but to work to avert the dangers of the conspiracy, even if only for a limited time, by signing a non-aggression pact with Hitler. Molotov was sent to negotiate with Hitler, and the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was signed on August 23, 1939, just 1 week before the outbreak of World War. Stalin's main goal for the non-aggression pact was to dismantle the imperialist-fascist alliance and gain enough time to prepare for war. Hitler's invasion of Poland was an attack on Britain and France, the two guarantors of Poland's independence, which led to their declaration of a phony war on Germany on September 1. As for Hitler, the occupation of Poland was a preliminary condition for war against the Soviet Union and its occupation. Stalin knew this, but he believed that Hitler would not be able to attack the Soviet Union before December 1941, especially since he had received a letter from Hitler a week before the invasion in which he swore that the movements of the German army on the Polish-Soviet border were only for regular training and not intended to violate Soviet borders. What is worth mentioning in this context is that a lot of information was reaching Stalin through Soviet intelligence confirming Hitler's plans for an imminent attack on the Soviet Union, but Stalin refused to believe those pieces of information, thinking they were fabricated by the British intelligence, which was indeed active in this regard. However, the German communist hero Richard Sorge lost his life to confirm to Stalin that Hitler would launch a war against the Soviet Union on June 22, without Stalin taking it seriously. In the early hours of June 22, 1941, Stalin was shocked and the German ambassador requested a meeting to declare Germany's war on the Soviet Union. The news was so shocking that Stalin refused to meet the ambassador. As a Marxist-Leninist leader and a leading commander of the world's socialist revolution, Stalin realized that he had allowed himself to be deceived by a fascist man from the trash of history, namely Hitler. He quickly made the decision that Stalin had no right to be the leader of the world socialist revolution and that he should step aside for another leader. However, he himself refused to declare war on Germany and asked Molotov, the foreign minister at the time, to declare war. Molotov refused Stalin's request because the declaration of war is made by the head of state and not the foreign minister, but Stalin insisted on his position, forcing the foreign minister Molotov to declare war on Germany later, which was unprecedented in history. After Molotov declared war on June 22, Stalin disappeared. The Soviet Union faced Hitler's wide aggression without a supreme leader, without Stalin. During the first 3 days of the war, June 22 to 25, this fact was ignored by Soviet official history with no justification. The Soviet intelligence did not discover Stalin's whereabouts until June 25, when 3 members of the Politburo, led by Molotov, went to find him and bring him back to his rightful place as the head of the party, the state, and the supreme commander of the Soviet military forces. However, Stalin firmly refused to return to his leadership positions, as it would be an admission of his failure to confront Hitler as required, and that he did not deserve to be Lenin's successor as the leader of the world socialist revolution. Molotov later said that Stalin only accepted to return to his position after they convinced him that the Soviet Union would be defeated and vanish in the face of Hitler without him, and that he would ultimately be responsible for it all. The official Soviet history disregarded that incident without reason, even though it is a clear indication of the true Leninist Marxist nature, a nature that is rare to find in humanity to this day. It also exposes the falsehood of the claims that Stalin oppressed his comrades to preserve his leadership position.